Hello, and welcome to my Prezi presentation on creating a brochure, a grade 4 unit. Over the next 10 minutes, we will have the chance to review this unit in full detail. For starters, we will begin by looking at the unit concept and the goals that was hoped to be accomplished over the course of the unit. Following that, we will discuss and briefly review the curriculum expectations. Next, we will explore the initial hook that kick-started this unit way back in the beginning of internship and understand how it related to the overall process. Following the hook, you will get to see the step-by-step process and how students brainstorm their ideas for their brochures to the finished product. Finally, a reflection will be discussed about some of the things that would be done differently if this unit were to be taught and executed again. Unit concept and goals. The gist of this unit was to provide students with an opportunity to create a brochure that was original, but also based on the idea that it could be a real place one could visit or an activity people could partake in. The unit provided students with an opportunity to showcase their written ideas in a unique and novel way. Goals. The goals for this unit were quite simple. We wanted students to write clear and concise information that presented details of a place, activity, or event in the form of a brochure. Being able to discern and delegate key information is a skill that needs opportunities for practice, and being one of the key goals in this unit. The second goal was to have students balance text and imagery throughout their brochures. Having a balance between text and images is a key skill to have when presenting one's ideas through different means, such as posters or even PowerPoint presentations. The third goal was to develop an understanding and enhance skills in writing to target audiences. As you will see, when reading their brochures, they are clear and very comprehensive. Curriculum expectations. For this unit, students were to generate, gather, and organize ideas and information to write for an intended purpose and audience. They were to also draft and revise their writing using a variety of informational, literary, and graphic forms and stylistic elements appropriate for the purpose and audience. Lastly, they were to use editing, proofreading, publishing skills, strategies, and knowledge of language conventions. The hook. What kick-started this unit was the annual Jackman Institute of Child Study winter trip to Towingo. Here, students participated in a number of activities and gained memories that would last a lifetime. When students came back, they received brochures regarding the Towingo summer camps. Based on the enthusiasm and interest students showed in these Towingo summer brochures, it was decided on the spot that students would create their own type of brochure. The process, step by step. Step 1. Previous knowledge in looking at brochures. During the initial class, a brief question and answer discussion was held to gauge students' previous knowledge about what brochures are. Questions such as, what are brochures? What are they used for? And what types of brochures there are. Of course, the summer Towingo camp brochure was pointed out and brought up by a lot of the students in the class. The next portion of this class was having students divided into pairs. Once paired up, they received one of many different types of brochures to examine and read over. It is important to point out that the brochures were carefully selected and they related to the students. When students received their brochure, they also received a graphic organizer that outlined key features that they were to make note of. These features included what different kinds of information are given, how is the brochure made visually appealing, and what worked for this brochure and what didn't work in this brochure. Students had about 10 minutes and switched brochures with another pair in class so they would all get to see multiple different types of brochures and could make note of all the differences from these different types of brochures. Step 2. Brainstorming and mapping out elements of a brochure design. The following 2 classes had students brainstorming ideas about what their brochure was going to be all about and mapping out the elements of their brochure. As you can see in this example, the lists that students came up with were quite extensive and broad. In addition to brainstorming ideas for their brochures, students were encouraged to hone in on the top 3 ideas and to use those 3 ideas to narrow in on one selection. Once students had their idea, the next step was to begin the writing process and to think carefully in what they would include in their brochure. To help students with this process, they received another graphic organizer that was broken into a number of sections. They were the title, introduction, and information sections. Also, there was catchphrases that could be included throughout the brochure, and contact information. Step 3. Using iWorks and learning how to use Pages. At this stage, a class was given on how to use Pages. Pages is a word processor and a page layout tool that helps you create great-looking documents, newsletters, reports, and much more. And for the purposes of this class, it was used to create brochures. For a number of students, this was the first time they would be able to use Pages. Using the smartboard, students were shown an example of a brochure that was created by the teacher. As a wonderful idea, the example that was shown by the teacher was recreated on the spot so that students could get a clear sense of how Pages worked and also got a sense of what their brochure could actually look like. Step 4. First drafts. Over the course of the next few classes, students worked hard in coming up with their first drafts. Students received feedback on a continuous basis. The examples shown here are the first drafts of brochures that contain corrections, feedback, and suggestions. Step 5. Picture and text layout. At this stage, students now consider the structure and layout of their brochures and to decide on the images they would include. To help them in this process, it was suggested that they took little sticky notes and write out the kind of pictures they wanted on their brochures before they were actually inserted into them. Step 6. The finished product. At last, with all the text in place, all the images inserted, and everything laid out as they wanted it to be, the final product of their brochures was printed and in color. Let's take a look at 2 examples. The variety and depth of thought that was put into these brochures was astounding. At the end, students had a chance to share the brochures with each other and celebrate in the success of their final products. Unit reflection. Following the end of the unit, A few changes were discussed in terms of what could have been done differently, or should have been done differently, if this unit were to ever be taught again. The first change would be to have more structure for the written pieces in their brochures. For the most part, students were very successful for this, but some had difficulty in figuring out what they wanted to say. The next change would be to have 1 or 2 more lessons on pages as a whole group. A number of students found it difficult at times to use a few of the features in pages that made the brochure process a little difficult at times. Finally, the last change would have been to have a class on images in terms of finding appropriate images and what to do if inappropriate images came up. That concludes the Prezi presentation on creating a brochure, a grade 4 unit. Thank you for watching.